Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Legal Tech Week. This is the show where we talk about the top stories in legal tech and innovation. Today is Friday, December 12th, 2025. And my name is Bob Ambrogi. I have a blog called Law Sites and a podcast called Law Next. And our panelists today, as you see them arrayed before you here in our Brady Bunch screen. Niki, you want to kick us off?
Sure. My name is Niki Black. I am the Principal Legal Insight Strategist at 8 a.m., the team behind My Case Law, Case Pure, and DocketWise, and I write legal tech columns for Above the Law ABA Journal and the Daily Record. And I wish I was where Stephanie is. I wish I
I
was in your
know.
background at least. It looks so cozy.
So do I. Um, I was on Relativity's webinar for the predictions every year. It's like every year David Horgan says it's going to be holiday themed and then forgets to do anything. So at least this year I just had a background. I didn't wear a Santa hat on my own. Um, but anyway, I guess I'm talking. So hi, I'm Stephanie.
Yeah.
I am the director of content at Legal Tech Hub, and I wish I was cozy like that.
I missed that. I didn't know about the relativity predictions. I should have watched that. All right, Victor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Lee. I am Assistant Managing Editor for the ABA Journal. That's Penny. You can probably see her butt on screen.
Who apparently was just came in from a walk, I'm guessing. All right. And Joe.
Joe Patrice from Above the Law and podcast called Thinking Like a Lawyer. I am not in anything like cozy, but I have cozy parts of of my area here, but I just don't have access to them today, I'm afraid.
All right. So did David have any intriguing predictions? Was it all e-discovery related, or did he have any other stuff?
It's all mostly e-discovery related. I mean, I liked Doug Austin's mostly because it's also mine, which is that we're going to actually get rulings on whether or not, prompts are discoverable, work product protected, etc. But it was highly e-discovery oriented.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I thought I would start today with a company we've talked about a couple of times. Harvey, you may have heard of it. Um, they do AI, I think. Um, but I was really interested this week. They did an AMA on Reddit, the two founders of Harvey, and I was really intrigued when I saw that they were gonna do that, and I was kind of intrigued to be in the so-called audience, I guess, for it while they did it, because we have talked about them quite a bit, and I think one of the things we've always talked about with them is how there's this a little bit of an air, a little air of mystery around them, how they for a long time they weren't all that sort of public talking about what they do or their product, and at various points they've said they're going to do more of that. I've noticed they've been on separately, I think, on some different podcasts lately, and talking to the media a little bit more. But I thought the AMA format was pretty interesting because you're kind of putting yourself out there to take whatever question people come along with, and that legal tech subreddit on which they appeared is um, it's one I follow a lot. It's a good subreddit, and I've seen sort of people expressing skepticism before about Harvey there. I think that was where that supposed former employee of Harvey had, I think, posted about the fact that they don't have the customer traction they claim to, or there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. There's sort of this critical post that had come up, and nobody, I don't think anybody ever identified who the person was or whether that person actually even was a former Harvey employee. But so I sat in on it, and I kind of wrote up. I mean, you can go read it for yourself. You don't have to read what I wrote up. But I thought it was interesting that they did get kind of frank about some things, and a little bit modest. I mean, when they were asked about their what some people think is their crazy $8 billion valuation. Winston Weinberg is one of the co-founders, said, well, we need to earn that valuation every day. But he, as I put in my article, he kind of broke down what investors see in the company into two components, math and momentum. And on the math side, he said there's approximately 10 million global legal professionals, and Harvey currently serves only a single-digit percentage of them. So the opportunity is huge. I mean, that could be true for almost any legal tech company. And then on momentum, it says the company's seen an 81% increase in daily active users as a percentage of monthly active users since launching in 2023, with power users showing engagement levels comparable to Slack or email. So they've got a lot of user traction going on there, it looks like. I thought another interesting question somebody asked about was just the how did they compare? What do I get out of using Harvey that I can't get from using Claude or ChatGPT or something? And the other co-founder, Gabe Pereira, kind of walked through what he saw, which is, you get better AI because it's focused on legal. You get a company that's focused on trying to make legal teams more effective on matters, working together, a deeper integration with legal tech ecosystems and law firm systems, governance features such as ethical walls, focus on making firms more profitable, client collaboration infrastructure to allow firms and clients and firms to securely share data and collaborate. So I don't need to keep going on it, but again, I just thought it was, given how much we've talked about it, it was a little bit of a window, a wider open window maybe into the company than we'd really had before. I don't know that it told us all that much more about their tech per se, but a little perspective on the company. I don't know if was anybody else in that or watch it or read through it afterward.
I only read through it after.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts?
I think Nikki was about to talk, though. I'll let her talk.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Something to say. That's okay. You go ahead.
Okay. No, I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, I thought it was a good move on their part to do it, especially since they were, the subject of that recent super hit piece that may or may not have been by an actual Harvey employee. But yeah, I mean, to counteract this reputation they can't shake of never being public and transparent. And I mean, I thought they did a good job of trying to answer questions. And yeah, I don't know if we learned anything particularly new, but much like with the negative Reddit, even with the positive Reddit, I'm just like, if you're going to Reddit expecting to find like actual deep information about stuff, I think you're doing it wrong. So I mean, Reddit is what it is. But I mean, I thought, I mean, I give them credit for doing it and trying to give comprehensive answers to things. Yeah.
I thought that there were two interesting things about it. One, what you just alluded to, Bob, this idea that, there's a huge legal market that's untapped, and I feel like PE and venture capital all come rolling in here and see that, and they all say they see the exact same thing, and they just don't talk to the right people before they invest to understand that it may be a big, huge market, but it is so siloed and so many little pockets that you have to approach in so many different ways that it's not as easy as you think. Lawyers are not just lawyers, right? There's geography, there's practice area, there's firm size, there's so many different things that, and those are just a few of them that impact how lawyers work and what they need and how you reach them and how you market to them. So that I thought was interesting because you just keep hearing them salivate over that, but it never comes to fruition. But then the other thing, I actually did get something out of this, and it may just be because I haven't been paying attention. And sometimes it's a PR lesson, right? You can throw something out into the universe 15 times and it only hits eventually one time, and they may be the 15th time. So that's why companies have to keep reiterating certain things. I wasn't aware of their origin story. I mean, I sort of was, this idea that it was this, these young guys who were practicing law, and then they came up with this idea. But that origin story made me rethink a lot of my criticisms about them. I mean, I've been particularly like, I don't know who these jokesters are over here, who they think they are, who knows if it's like, real. And but what it made me sort of rethink is, if I was someone who'd never really been in the legal tech space, I just gone to law school and then I've been working in big law, and then I came up with this random idea, if the origin story is correct, kind of off the cuff, and they emailed Sam Altman and the GC of OpenAI in the very early days, and they got a response. And then suddenly they have funding for this thing they haven't even created. Then they finally create the thing, and with their big law contacts, they get one or two companies to test it out. And then all of a sudden they have all this momentum they didn't expect. They don't know legal tech. They don't know who we are. They don't know what you're supposed to do. They don't know. And probably like one or two people reached out and they're like, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to give you a demo. Like I'm busy. I have too many things on my going on. So
They could have asked AI.
right, but you know what I mean? And I don't, whatever PR, we already have all this momentum and we're so busy as it is. Why do we even need to worry about that? And I think now as they're getting bigger, they're starting to have more of a PR perspective and an insight on the industry itself. And so maybe I have these knee-jerk reactions and I can sometimes be judgmental for no reason. So I sort of feel like I was a little judgmental thinking that they were being uppity is the only word I can think of, when maybe they just didn't have the bandwidth or the understanding because this wasn't an industry they were familiar with. So that made me rethink all my criticisms of them. So it was pretty effective on me, not that they probably, I was on the
I was
radar.
gonna say, so the PR flag should get a raise then, right? No, no, I agree. I agree with you, Nick, because I like just reading it, like just looking at it. I mean, just with the money thing, it's like, oh, we have to earn that valuation. It's just like, well, that's not what you said a few weeks ago when you were like, oh, we don't need the money and that kind of stuff. So I do wonder if there was a little bit of that, to it, kind of that idea. Not that they have to do damage control over things like that, but I mean, any little bit helps. And yeah, I mean, Reddit can be can be a pretty dangerous kind of forum to go into. I think the legal subreddit might be a little bit more tame compared to like when R. Kelly went on Reddit and didn't ask me anything, which was like a disaster. But I mean the people in these in the subreddit they're probably a little bit more they're not going to ask questions like like what they asked R. Kelly. But yeah, I mean. I think yeah, there might have been a PR aspect to it. But one thing that I was surprised about, and you put this in the story, Bob, I guess it's 20% of the team are lawyers. Is that standard for companies like this, or that seemed low to me? But I wasn't sure like if that was like low or high or standard, or I mean, do you have any idea about that or?
I think that it's unlikely, I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it against. I mean, I would think a lot of their companies engineers, so they're not going to be lawyers. I think what they've done is they've hired, from what I've seen, they've hired a lot of lawyers on the sort of sales side I don't even know what to call the positions of sort of, the people who are out there working with law firms and trying to help with implementation and setup and all of that. And then supposedly they've always said they've had a number of lawyers involved in just sort of in the product design, but on a kind of working closely with the engineers. So yeah, I don't know if that's an interesting question as to whether there's sort of an industry standard in terms of how many, some of these big companies, I don't know if any of their people are lawyers.
Yeah, I remember when I first spoke to them in 2024, which is like a year and a half ago, which is a lifetime ago in AI. But at the time, they even told me that they were basically their hiring was one for one lawyers and engineers. And I remember being like, wow, that's not what I expected. So I don't think it's that common for people to have a large tech company to have tons and tons of lawyers on board.
Well, I think what happens is with a startup, especially when you've got a lawyer startup, you often have one or two lawyers, and it's like 100% lawyers, and then maybe one dev. You got to have the dev to create the product. But then as they expand, depending on the type of product, they need to have SMEs, like subject matter experts, either on the to help product, like you suggested, Bob, or to understand the market and understand marketing. But then the bigger companies get, the less they think that they need lawyers, and also the more industry knowledge that non-legal employees start to gain, because once you interview customer after customer after customer on the product side, you start to understand the market. I mean, you start to gain that expertise about the market. So I think that I think 20% for the stage that they're in my opinion, is probably just the sweet spot. It's just the right amount, because lawyers aren't good business people. Lawyers didn't go to most of them don't have MBAs. They don't know how to run a business. So you do need to start, and they don't know customer support and sales and product, and then product marketing. And the bigger a company gets, the more roles, and then the more teams they start having specific to those functions. So I think it's a pretty good sweet spot, in my opinion, for how old they are.
I know that some of the bigger sort of tech enterprise companies are starting to hire people that have both the sort of the technical expertise, but also the subject matter expertise, and they're almost effectively like embedding them in some of their customers. I mean, when they go into a mega firm and they start to deploy their product into a really big law firm, they'll have like one of their people go essentially live in that firm for a while, and help help with that rollout, and almost like a employee of both organizations in a way. So I don't know if that's part of how they're using lawyers, but that's something that's becoming more common, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing. I feel like we're seeing larger companies, we're seeing them hiring for more roles that require JDs or legal experience or that subject matter expertise that they maybe didn't have before. And they're adding to it now that they're getting bigger. So
Yeah.
Well, that's also a new role, right? I think this is a fair statement. I was the first person, I could be wrong, to be hired into a role like that, as sort of like an evangelist, but also a subject matter expert. Um, and then the company started to hire in that role. I know that the large companies had lawyers in them, but not really doing what I did. And I think that more and more often, I do think that companies are starting to realize that there is a role for lawyers, even when they do get become larger, and they need that expertise across different teams. And so I do think you do see more of that. So I think that's a good point to raise too. I sort of raised the opposite and said it got less, claim the opposite. But I do think you're right. Then they start to understand what they need across their different teams as well as when they get a lot bigger. I feel like that was
Yeah.
remotely clear just now, but I hope that made sense. I sort of
Yeah.
went in this.
Yeah. I also want to just kind of go back and emphasize something you said earlier, because I don't know if we talk enough about that, but this idea that the legal tech market is not one market. I just like did a talk somewhere where I was talking about 10 things I had learned about legal tech or something, but one of them was exactly that, because everybody, so many, like you say, so many people from the investment community come in here saying, I want to invest in legal tech. I want to be part of the legal tech market. I want to know what's going on in the legal tech market. And it really isn't one market. It's a whole bunch of different markets depending on practice areas and firm sizes and employment settings and uh, any number of different factors, and we see that the technology that serves a big law, a large law firm isn't going to be the same technology that serves a small law firm or that serves a legal aid office or whatever. So it may overall, cumulatively, collectively add up to a huge potential market, but that doesn't mean one product is ever going to serve that entire market, except for Clio, which they say they're going to do. Anyway, um,
Well, I
so
think I saw. I think Cleo's going to do a Reddit Ask Me Anything soon. I think, right?
I don't know. Did they say they're going to do that?
I thought I saw on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I saw that too. That I think it's next week, maybe.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I think
no,
it's June, right?
Joshua just confirmed it next
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. Let's come up. We'll go on and ask some tough questions.
Spicy.
Um, I feel like because everybody's talking about Joe's story except us, it seems like the chat has sort of taken off to talk about
Well,
Joe's story.
well, 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 wait, no, there's
No,
multiple
no.
things going on.
Okay,
I
all right, all
just,
right.
yeah,
I'm
no,
not paying
I
attention.
actually,
I'm sorry.
no, in the chat, there's a side chat going on about my version of which is Victor's story. So we should go to Victor's story, and I also have a story on the same subject.
All right, okay. Then, well, actually, so maybe before, well, I guess the only thing I was actually thinking maybe we should go to Stephanie's story, only because after talking about Harvey, after talking about Harvey and mega investments, which Stephanie talks about, but there's another side to Stephanie's story that I thought was interesting as well. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about that, Stephanie? Or?
Sure. Yeah, I came back with my column this week, and the whole point of it was, I mean, we have myself, I'm guilty of this as well, writing so much about all these huge investments. Um, because there's so much coming in. Like, I mean, we said this before. Like, remember when we used to think like a $40 million investment was huge, and now we act like that's peanuts, which is ridiculous. But I mean, the more and more we talk about it, I mean, I've started to realize that, I mean, and I've heard from vendors as well saying, well, we feel like we don't even have news to tell you because we're not getting these huge investments in. And so to the column, I'll drop it in the chat here that I wrote, is
I
just
did.
like,
I just did. Yeah.
oh, thank you so much. Um, don't sleep on the bootstrapped companies. There's a lot of reasons to bootstrap. A lot of them choose not to get funding. And I mean, there's such a range of technology companies out there. And a lot of these people I mean, I guess I said it's like a virtual garage now, but the people building their solution in a garage might be like the thing that wins out. And they just have chosen not to get funding because they don't want to give over control of their company. Or, I mean, a lot of the smaller ones just tend to be super dedicated to, um, client service or the idea they're doing, or it's just, I feel like so many companies I've heard have started to say that they feel really overlooked because they're not giving these funding announcements. And then since I published this, I've had multiple vendors reach out to me and thank me for writing it and reminding people that they actually are doing cool things too. So I just wanted to put that out there. Not that I'm going to stop writing about big raises, but I think it's a thing that's easy to lose sight of when you're in this mega raise territory.
And I think it gets to be kind of a challenge for some of these companies because if they do decide to go that bootstrap route, they can be hugely successful.
Mhm.
And but the we're all we are all guilty of devoting headlines to the big raises, and people like to read about those things, but that doesn't say anything about the quality of the product or the value of the product or anything
Or
else
the
that's
longevity of the product
or the
either.
longevity of the product. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a really good point to raise and remind all of us of that fact.
Well, and
Thank
I
you,
think
Bob.
that it makes it really hard for companies to, when they're developing their product and they roll out some unusual new features or some unusual new offerings, to get any coverage. Because, like you said, the raises and the acquisitions, and now there's like so much news that's news. We didn't used to have news. Like it was just, there were so few and far between that um, I think it's very hard for anybody to get any type of um, coverage that isn't paid, and then some of them can't afford, some of the really small companies, to pay for it, so it becomes really challenging, I think. And that's where the startup alleys help, I think, but I don't
Yeah.
think they're enough. And then you have a lot of companies that are in the middle, that have been around for a long time, that have, like you said, Stephanie, decided. I mean, I remember someone telling me once, one of the CEOs of one of the cloud companies, that, I just want to be able to pay my mortgage. I don't want someone else telling me what to do. I
Yeah.
want to be able to support my employees, produce a good product, but I don't want to have other people overseeing what I'm doing and questioning my decisions. And eventually that company got acquired too. So I think people get to a point where they just kind of give up, but um,
And
it's,
I think a lot of people that aren't necessarily in the space, like this was me before I started really writing about legal tech, and I had never founded a company. I didn't know that much about how companies worked. I was like, why would you not want to take money? Money's great, right? That's how you succeed. And then once you get into it, I think a lot of like the more people who are just like looking at the shiny objects don't realize that there are downsides to taking a lot of money sometimes. They don't realize the control factor. So I mean, I don't know. It's been percolating in my head for the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to raise it.
Yeah. If it bleeds, it leads. Well, there must be a money equivalent to that phrase, but if it bleeds money, it leads. I don't know. All right. Well, now, without further ado, we can get to Victor's story.
All right. So, well, and I'm also going to plug the podcast that I recorded with Niki, actually, that hit the waves this week, where we do it's our annual year in review. So people can, I'll put that link in there. People can check it out at their leisure. Um, but yeah, so President Trump released signed an executive order today aimed at regulating AI and stopping states from, preempting federal. I don't want to say federal law because it's not a
The
law,
law.
but um, okay, look, okay, I'm not gonna do the Trump voice. I'm not gonna do the accordion hands, but um, he's not wrong when he says that, we probably should have a federal standard and that we shouldn't just leave it up to the states. But, you know, this is probably isn't the way to go about it. And he's had such, he's gone back and forth on his on where he stands on AI, and that at this point it's hard to even discern what he would even want, or what it's just, the executive order seemed more aimed at stopping states, which I didn't know you could really do that, and not really a coherent policy of like what AI regulation would look like at the federal level. That being said, look, the idea of having a federal standard probably is the right approach, and he's probably not wrong that in that sense. But in the execution, and maybe I shouldn't use the word execution because Joe does have the story about Pete Hegseth later on.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah. But that leaves a lot to be desired, and but look, obviously it's big news, and it's we're talking about it. A lot of people in the chat were talking about it, so people are clearly interested in it, and it's one of those things where I mean, maybe it'll looking at it from an optimistic standpoint, maybe it'll spur some action in Congress, although I wouldn't be holding my breath there, and kind of generate a much needed discussion and debate, because Congress is really good at that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of his executive orders, it just seems like this is a lot. This really isn't much.
If they could have had a national standard, they've asked Congress for it twice. Congress has not done it because we spent most of the fall with Congress not in session, so that they didn't have to be forced to release the Epstein files for some reason that Trump was very concerned about. Anyway, they've asked before and not gotten it. But the issue is this is schoolhouse rock stuff. Like the Congress has to pass the law. The Supremacy Clause requires Congress to do it. And there's a part of the executive order where he says, like, we need to have a national standard. But given that there isn't one, until then, and I was like, there's no until then. You don't get to just make up a mood board for how you regulate things when Congress doesn't act. It's so frustratingly ridiculous. And unfortunately, and I wrote another story last week about which was about college football, but was related in that was related only to the extent that there's a growing, worrisome to me, segment of the population who seems to believe, because the president seems to believe it, that executive orders operate like royal decrees. People started going out there being like, well, he should have an executive order that fixes this. It's like, that's not how they work. That's not what they do. And it's worrisome to me that as he issues these orders, which are gibberish legally, he's reinforcing this idea amongst people that they can do these things. And knowing that the Supreme Court's not going to stop him, and will just like shrug if anything comes up, only makes it worse. Yeah, like a national standard would be great. It's not going to happen anytime soon. You don't get to preempt laws based on wish casting.
He does raise and I hate it when this happens, when Trump's administration, people in it do things, and I'm like, well, that's a good point. Like, or that's actually something I agree with. I hate it when that happens, but he does raise a good point that if all 50 states pass laws, it makes it really challenging for these companies to comply with all of them, and it does discourage innovation. That being said, I don't trust his motivations. I don't trust that he's coming from the right place in issuing this order that is not really worth the paper it's written on. But it does start the conversation. I think that's a good thing. It does get the conversation going. And I have no faith in his administration executing very much on anything that he supposedly orders. But he does raise some good points. And I agree that just like y'all are saying, there should be perhaps a national standard that at least is guidance, or it is controlling in some ways. I don't know. I haven't thought this through.
Yeah, I mean, sucks to live under federalism, I guess, but like that's where we are, and like that's the structure, and you can supplant the state's rights to do this, but it requires Congress. And if you can't get Congress on board to do it, then and it's also true that like there is an argument to be had that sometimes the fact that states can exercise flex a little bit of muscle has worked out great for us, right? Delaware's corporate law has largely worked out well for the entire country. The fact that they have kind of cornered the market on that is a good thing, and they impact the way in which commerce works everywhere by doing that. And so there's an argument that sometimes states exercising their own prerogatives to influence interstate commerce is good. But yeah, sure, we should have a national standard. Get Congress together and figure out one. Then until then, we have to kind of live with this.
Well, they can't even talk about TikTok coherently, so that's the problem.
Well,
It's never going to happen.
oh no, that's not true. They did pass a law about TikTok. Trump's response to it was, I'm going to ignore this law. And that's somehow been a thing that we've allowed to happen for several
But
months.
do you remember the hearings where they're like, what? Like, what's a talk? Like, the hearings were ridiculous when they were trying to uh, question the CEO of TikTok. Like, their
Yeah,
questions were ridiculous.
Tom Cotton thought he was a Chinese spy, I think, or so, or a member of the
yeah,
Chinese Communist Party. He's just like, I'm from Singapore.
But right,
yeah.
but if they can't even ha- form coherent sentence questions around TikTok or understand the concept of TikTok, forget about it with AI. I mean, that's the problem. Like, where are we going? They're not going
Yeah.
to get anything done either. So we're in a catch 22 here. Like, nothing's ever going to happen unless the states do it. But then if the states all have their own laws and regulations in place, I do think it makes it really difficult for companies to comply with all these
Yeah,
things.
I will say, though, that is true. But there's whenever we have conversations about federalism, there is always a bit of disingenuity embedded in it that like a 50 state patchwork. Well, it won't be a 50 state patchwork. There's only so many things you can do with AI. Like there's only so many regulations that are going to get passed. They're all going to be about like, hey, don't deep fake naked celebrities or something like that. Like the laws are all going to more or less coalesce. They're going to coalesce around a couple of poles at most.
maybe, but I mean, you can analogize it to like digital privacy legislation, where we're starting to get this real patchwork of state laws that are not consistent with each other. And yeah, a lot of them will cover the same topics, but not cover them in the same way. So that means that businesses that operate in multiple states, which is like every business in the world these days, have to try and figure out this patchwork and make sure that they're complying with the requirements of each state. Even smaller businesses where, right, I mean, you might be in Massachusetts and New Hampshire or something, and those two states might have totally different laws, and you have to, even as a small business, have to figure out how you're complying with those different things. So, I mean, it certainly makes sense to have like a federal standard to me. Whether that would ever happen is the other issue. It also made me wonder, like, whatever happened to this thing we used to hear about a lot was the Uniform Commission on State Laws, where like some very smart lawyers would sit around and try and come up with like a uniform law that would apply, that they would then introduce in legislatures all across the state and come up with uniformity that way. I don't even know. I know that's still a thing, but it's not something you hear much about anymore.
Well, we do hear a lot about, and I think they've now changed their name because they started getting a lot of bad press. But like that's what ALEC was, right? Like ALEC was
Yeah.
this conglomeration being paid, totally funded by corporations on the back end that was like drafting full laws, handing them to state houses and getting them passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and look, let's be honest, right? I mean, Tom probably doesn't know anything about AI. He probably certainly doesn't know anything about, the dangers of it, or, even, why it needs to be regulated. This is probably because someone probably told him that California has the, passed the landmark AI law. He probably got mad because Gavin Newsom made fun of
Yeah,
his Peace Prize, and this is why he's doing it.
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's 100% what it is.
All right. Well, I guess as Victor said, it's all in the execution, and that brings us to Joe's other story.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hold on, let me grab that.
Thank you for
I
that
was
segue, Victor.
Yeah. No, speaking of just as an aside before I get to it, the speaking of execution, we somehow didn't talk at all about the brilliance of the Tesla robot who took off its headset and then collapsed. Did everybody see that?
No.
Oh, it went viral. So Tesla is like showing off how they have this new robot that is completely autonomous and it's AI driven and robots are coming, but apparently accidentally, the robot then goes like this and then collapses because somebody forgot to turn off the VR headset where they were clearly remote controlling it from had to be hit before they did it. So Tesla's, lying about whether or not they have robots, which fascinating. But what I wanted to talk about was an AI success story. We talk a lot about AI hallucinations and AI getting the law wrong. This is an example where AI managed to get it right. With a lot of fanfare earlier in the week, the Department of Defense unveiled that they had a new, largely Gemini-driven AI system that is exclusive to the military, so the military can use AI because, as Pete Hegseth said, the future of warfare is spelled AI, which it's not, because that's not how spelling works, but that's what he said. Interestingly, within hours of this coming out, someone in the military, in the Air Force to be specific, went in and asked it some questions to test out the AI and asked, hypothetically, if I were being told that I had to strike a boat in, say, the Caribbean because there were allegedly drugs on it, and then I had to circle back and double tap them, would that be a problem? And the AI was like, yes, that is obviously a fucking war crime, which proves that occasionally AI is accurate, and we need to celebrate these wins. We celebrate that, as I pointed out, ChatJag seemed to do a good job here, or GI Gemini, I guess I also called it. It did a good job of understanding the law, clearly better than any human lawyers involved in the conversation. So applause. I will, give credit to AI where it's due.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, here and here, I mean, that's when I was reading this thing. It's weird, right? The military used to be responsible for some of the big technological innovations, right? The internet, GPS, and that kind of stuff. But now they're piggybacking off Gemini. Like what is that?
Yeah. Yeah. We used to be a proper country.
I think
But
starting to feel like Team America World Police. Remember that movie? I feel like that's what
mhm.
our government's turning into. It's just over the top exaggerations of
I mean,
what
that movie was literally about the second Bush administration. We already were
Yeah.
that. The movie was about
Yeah.
how we were that.
Yeah.
it's like on crack at this point. Like it's that on crack. Like it's so over the
Well,
top.
fair.
Like Hegseth is like just a caricature of the department, like the head of the Department of War now, but like the Department
No, still defense.
of
You know why? Here we can. It's a segue that brings us all the way back because Congress needs to change its name. You can't just make up things.
I mean, does anybody remember the days when we all the United States used to just routinely install their leaders that they wanted in South American countries? It was like that was par for the course. We just did that. Nobody questioned it. Thought we had
We'll do
moved
that in
beyond that, but
Venezuela soon.
thought we had moved beyond that.
Well, the whole spheres of influence thing. It's like brings up what like World War II era stuff. It's like like Hitler and Stalin dividing up like spheres of influence. It's like, come on, you can at least come up with different names.
If we keep talking about these stories, Julie's never going to be able to join us again because she's going to have to show 5 years of what she talked about America.
Julie's clearly never coming to the United
This is
States
true.
anytime soon.
This is
Like,
true.
unbelievable though. I shared that.
nor us to Canada. Yeah.
I shared in our Slack that that's like not legal tech really, but they're planning to. It's a suggestion. It's an idea that's been thrown out there. I think by Trump, wasn't it Trump, to start anybody, and it lists a list of 30 countries, including a whole bunch of European countries. We're not talking about like some very small, questionable countries, for lack of a better description. it's requiring people that potentially requiring people that want to cross into the United States at customs to have public facing social media accounts to show all of them and make them viewable and accessible to the customs officers. And if they hide a social media account, they can't come back into the United States. They can't get visas currently, like the visa they're trying to get, or in the past. And it doesn't just apply to visas, but it like blocks them from coming into the country for a number of years if they lie about an account that's out there. Like, it's pretty crazy. No one's gonna ever want to come to the US again.
They already don't. I mean, that has been on that boat left the dock earlier this year, but yeah.
I want to see those agents going through like Ellie Mistal's 5 years of his
Oh,
social
yeah.
media accounts, and
Yeah.
would
I
they
mean,
really even want to do that? I don't know. But I mean, we're talking about public accounts, or even what's on like
Well,
private
what they
messages
said
and
was that
that kind of thing. I mean,
they said they had to make all of their accounts public before they tried to cross the border,
yeah.
like tried to get into the United States as a tourist. Like, we're not talking like
No, these are tourist visas issue, yeah.
or somebody wants to
but I
come
mean,
live here. They just want to come here and like check out the Statue of Liberty, and they've got to go and make. What if they have stuff that's private with their families, with pictures of their kids on some social media account, that only their family members can view, like Facebook or something? And they have to make
well,
that.
but there, yeah, the answer to that is coming to the United States is a privilege, not a right, and they feel that they can get into it. And to bring this back to legal tech, because we are somewhat veering off, but to bring it back to it, how does someone at the border look at 5 years of social media? I'm sure Palantir, to pick a company at random from a list of evil, is going to come up with some sort of an AI-driven tool that allows it to zip right through and immediately find the point where you had accidentally retweeted a picture of JD Vance with the fat face or whatever, and then deny you entry. That's what they're going to do.
Yep. All right. Now we come to the holiday cheer portion of our show.
That wasn't it.
That's a great
Okay.
segue, Bob. That was one of your best ones, I got to say.
Bob's like, before it all burns down, let's be a little festive.
Now, a little
My
word
heavy
from
hitting story.
Niki on the perfect gift for that lawyer in your life for the holiday season.
My heavy hitting stories, article that I wrote. I've been writing I think I've done this every year for the Daily Record since I started with my column there, which I want to say was 2007. It might have been 2008. And every December I write a top gift suggestions or top gift list for the tech savvy legal professionals or lawyers in your life. And I, of course, did that again this year. Back in the day, it used to be sometimes like certain iPhone apps or the iPhone itself or Kindle, like. And now, like, all this stuff is so common, it becomes a little bit harder to, in my opinion, come up with the types of recommendations I used to come up with. But I do always recommend a few tech books because I think that's a great way for lawyers to get up to date on whatever the latest tech is. So I did do that this year. I recommended Richard Susskind's book for lawyers that just are trying to wrap their head around what the heck is this AI thing, that haven't quite gotten up to speed on it yet. And then there was a book that the an ABA soon to be published book sometime this month about AI, not just like what is AI, it's also like it is what is AI, but it also has like the legal ramifications and ways to talk to your clients about it. So it's not necessarily just how to use AI in your practice, but it does provide a broad overview of AI for lawyers. And then I also, one thing I've been doing lately for these is because we all travel a lot. I've like gotten my traveling down to a science in terms of all the tech gadgetry that I need to make the hell of travel at least bearable. And so I did recommend a number of, in addition to the books, there is a foldless wireless charger for Apple devices that my husband gave me for the holidays last year that I thought was stupid, and I wasn't very nice when he gave it to me. I'm like, what are we gonna do with this? I already have charger cords. But one time I was not a very nice gift recipient. I admit that up front. But then I traveled with it one time, and it was really convenient to have them all. It just lays out flat. Your iPhone, your watch, your AirPods all just sit right on there, and they all can charge together, but it's like more for your hotel room, not on the road, because it's not wireless or anything. But it only has one wire, you know, that goes into the outlet in the wall. So that's better than having a whole bunch of them. So it's nice to have that. So I recommended that, even though I was not very happy to receive it, which wasn't very nice of me. I think I was grumpy. AirPods Pro, because in addition to traveling with AirPods Pro 3, the noise cancellation, I can't travel without that at this point. But also there's like translation capabilities, and you can have they have the hearing aid setting so that you can, if you're in a really loud setting, control the noise, look like you're ignoring everyone around you because you've got your AirPods in, but make it a little more bearable for you. The AirFly Pro, I have one of these. I actually haven't tried it yet, but everyone loves them. I bought it because it seems like they're so fantastic, but I always just use my iPhone. The AirFly Pro allows you, if you have wireless headphones, to connect it to the seat back screen, so that instead of having to have the corded devices that have to plug into it, it Bluetooths the sound into your wireless AirPods or headphones, AirPods, whatever. So and I know it works. I tried it once, but not just for a second. So that's a great thing to have, and everybody that does use them loves them. I just like to use my phone instead of and plan what I'm going to watch ahead of time. And then it's a MagSafe airplane holder mount. It is just another way to, if you're going to do what I do, which is watch your iPhone, to have the iPhone easily held and at different angles on your seat front, so that you can watch your iPhone rather than having your neck looking down. So that's what I recommended this year. But every year I do try to recommend gadgets. And if anybody else has any recommendations or gadgets to add to the list,
So
chime
I
right
just
in.
noticed you've got the broken link, I think, on your AirFly, which is, isn't it? They're Flyfi. Flyfi? Is that this different brand, or there's a Flyfi? But if you click on the link in your article for the AirFly, it goes to your
That is
Meg
probably
charger.
because when I
And the
published
Meg charger has the absolute best title I've ever seen of a product on Amazon. I'm going to put it in the chat, but it's the Listen Travel Gifts 2025 Christmas for Gifts, Airplane Gadgets, Men, Mini Travel Essential Phone Holder, Stocking Stuffers for Women, MagSafe Accessories, Cruise Essentials 2026 for Valentine's Gift. I mean, who wouldn't want that? The
I
Fly-Fi thing, though, if that's the same, Joe and I got those for free, right? Did you get one, Joe? At the
Yeah,
they were like a giveaway at one of the
at Lex
Filevine.
Summit.
Was it
Yeah,
Lex? Yeah, at Lex Summit a couple of years
yeah.
ago, and it's really great. I use it a lot. It's yeah, it just lets you
So
use your yeah.
it's
What?
interesting you say that because I was so psyched by it. I was like, this is the best idea ever. And then I have, since I got it, and it was a great idea. And since I got it, I have not been on a plane that didn't have Bluetooth built into their things. And I
oh
was like, no, like but it really is. If you are on a route that still has plug-in, it is fantastic for that.
yeah, I
I
think that when I
Maybe if my planes have Bluetooth. I don't even know it. I'm just using the stupid Fly-Fi and not needing to. I don't know.
oh
I dropped a really stellar candle from Etsy link in the chat.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I mean, what you were saying before, Nikki, it's right. It's like hard to think of cool. It used to be like these like tech gadgets where like people, I don't know, they were more unique. They seem more unique. I remember actually, Nikki, one year you recommended like this like foldable keyboard stand or something that I actually bought and used extensively. It was
oh
great
yeah,
for
that's my
travel.
time.
And
Right?
but yeah,
Yeah, the or not my by the Moft, MOFT.
yeah. I think that was the one. Something
Yeah.
like that. Whoops, just fall over. Anyway, there's Airfly. All right.
Yeah, I think that when I republishing the article, I just copied that. I have to type the links in because for the article itself rather than create links because it's for print. And when I turn it into a blog post, I think I just copied the same link twice when I was
Yeah,
creating the
yeah.
hyperlinks. I'm gonna go and fix that.
All right.
About that. I'm glad you noticed it. I want to fix it.
Any
But the
other?
mouse I can't recommend enough. I still use that. I buy every time I get a new work computer, I buy one. It fits, it's just folds right up flat and it fits in the bottom of your computer. And it's like 30 or 40 bucks or something. And it just makes it so wherever you go, you can angle the computer up and it's super convenient. I love it.
Yeah.
I can find a link for that too.
I do love if you have the iPad Pro, that like the keyboard thing you can put on it that I had to buy because I may or may not have been so tired from conferences that I got on a plane to one without my laptop. But they work really well.
Victor, is your link to different, not Niki's list, that's your own ABA journal list?
Yeah, I didn't have anything to do with this one, but yeah, we
Oh,
also put out a gift guide as well. So if you're looking for things like there's not all tech stuff. Like we also had lawsuit Barbie. That's yeah, a gift for lawyers. And then there were some other, but yeah, I mean there was this weird looking robot thing that's Chat GPT powered. You know, I think I saw something that I really wanted. It was like it's like a portable screen that you can take with you, but then you can then connect to your laptop so you can do like two screens for wherever you travel. But it was like ridiculously expensive. So if anyone knows of like a more affordable one, let me know. But yeah, that thing was like it was like 300 or 400 bucks. I'm not paying 300 400 bucks
Yeah.
for that.
all right. Um, all right. Actually, I forgot we did have another story we could talk about, which is that new LexisNexis AI. What was I'm already blanking on what it was. Joe wrote about it. I wrote about it. They're the next phase of their uh, what was it called? I don't have it in front of me.
Protege?
Protege.
Yeah, the
Next
protege,
generation
Yeah,
the
protege?
general, the
right.
protege general, right?
Really
So
annoying to write about because you have to get the two E's. So you have to hold it down and pick the right accent in the right direction.
I just copy and paste.
That's probably the smart way to do it.
Yeah, I can never figure out how to do the stupid accents on a keyboard. Um, but yeah, they came out. I mean, it's kind of interesting because they just came out with this, like the sort of the beta version of it in August, and they came out with the general release version of it in October, and now they've come out with the next generation version of it in December. Um, and I think it, the idea, I think the kind of the core idea is that within a single workflow, you can be working in Lexis legal protege, legal AI, whatever they're calling it, or go into the general models and still have the advantage of being able to check citations and that sort of thing and be more integrated in your workflow and also access your own client documents and search against those. And so it was an interesting. I'm not giving it its due. It's a cooler product than I thought that I'm making it sound like. But I thought it was also interesting just the sort of the pace at which they're developing it, and I think it just kind of shows how competitive this market is right now. I mean, stuff that it would have been, in the old days, a couple of years ago, it might have been they'd come out with their general release version, in October, and it might be 6 months or even a year before they'd come out with their next generation version of it. Now we're talking a couple of months, and probably be another next generation a couple of months more down the line. So I thought it was interesting for that reason, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea. It just for me, it's not even an AI story. It's back to the bit that one of the hot buzzwords we had before AI, the single pane idea. Like I like the idea of people are going to try to use all of these other things, put it inside the secure system so that people don't change the tab over to something else. That's what I think is smart about it, and I like that they're setting it up that way.
Yeah. And you had the quote of the week, Joe, with calling Shepard's that it includes Shepard's insight along for the ride like a chaperone at the prom.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
All right. All right. Anything else?
Can I make
What else?
one request? Because this is probably what I'll talk about next week. And I know what the answer is going to be, but I have a poll open on LinkedIn about Legal Tech Word of the Year, which I will talk about next year. And I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be, but if anyone wants to go vote.
Yeah, I voted. There was one that was already the runaway
Yeah,
leader.
I know. I knew it would be, and I tried to even be like reverse psychology and like don't put it first or last, no primacy and recency and all of that. But yeah, I knew it was
Is
gonna
it
win, but I'm more interested to see how the other ones shake out against each other. Yeah.
is it where do we have to, is it a selection of words that we have to choose from, or do we have
Yeah,
to?
yeah. It's just I picked four of them to put up there. I actually did a group think in with like I workshopped it within LTH because I couldn't figure out how to narrow it down to four, and some other people suggested ones, and so I just tried to put enough in there that were different. I refused to include hallucinations because I was mad that it won last year even, so I just am not even putting it as an option this year.
How come I'm not getting the word that link you just put in is to the funding frenzy article, though, right?
Oh, just kidding. I just really wanted you to look at that again.
I'm getting a LinkedIn piece on the funding frenzy, not on the word of the year.
Yeah, because technology is hard, Bob.
We'll wait till you put that in.
Boom, try that one. Oh, really long.
That's a long one.
Yeah, I don't.
All right, that works.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, while you're all, you can all go vote, and we'll be back next week to get the exciting results from that, and anything else
Love
that
a
happens between
surprise.
now and then. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll see you all back here next Friday.
Hi, all.
Bye.